Sometimes the person you trust most becomes a stranger overnight. What happens when the home you built together turns into a prison, and silence becomes your only weapon? This is the true story of how one woman's quiet strength unraveled a web of lies that had been spun for 15 years. What she discovered wasn't just betrayal, it was something far more sinister. And it all started the night he turned off the TV. I remember staring at the black screen of the television, my reflection looking back at me like a ghost. Tom's hand was still on the remote, his knuckles white from gripping it too hard. The living room felt smaller than usual, like the walls were closing in. "Get out," he said, not yelling, not angry, just cold. We'd been married for 15 years, 15 years of building a life together in our small house on Maple Street. 15 years of Sunday breakfasts and shared dreams, and now, on a random Tuesday evening in March, he wanted me gone. I didn't move, couldn't move. My body felt like it was made of stone. "Did you hear me, Claire?" His voice was steady, almost mechanical. "Pack your things. I want you out by morning." What did I do? My voice came out as a whisper. I hated how weak I sounded. He didn't answer. He just stood up, walked past me like I was invisible, and went upstairs. I heard our bedroom door close, not slam, close. Somehow that was worse. I sat there for hours, watching the darkness outside turn deeper. My mind raced through everything. Had I forgotten our anniversary? Said something wrong? But there was nothing. Just a normal day. I'd made his favorite dinner, meatloaf with mashed potatoes. We'd talked about fixing the fence. Everything was normal. Except it WSN single quotes T. I finally moved around midnight. But I didn't pack. Instead, I went to the kitchen and made tea. My grandmother always said hot tea could solve most problems. This felt bigger than tea could fix. But old habits die hard. That's when I noticed Tom's phone on the counter. He never left it anywhere. He usually kept it in his pocket, even when he slept. My hands trembled as I picked it up. I knew his password, our wedding date. He'd never changed it. The phone unlocked. I went to his messages, expecting to find another woman's name. An affair would hurt, but at least it would make sense. What I found was much stranger. There were texts from a number saved as M. Just the letter M. Tuesday worked. She suspected nothing. Payment received. Phase 2 begins tomorrow. Stick to the script. Don't waver. My blood ran cold. I scrolled up. The messages went back 3 months, all cryptic. All talking about me like I was some kind of project. I heard footsteps upstairs. Quickly, I put the phone back exactly where I'd found it. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. Sleep didn't come that night. I lay on the couch, my mind spinning with questions. Who was M? What was phase 2? What script? By the time the sun came up, I'd made a decision. Tom wanted me to leave. Fine, but I wasn't going to run scared. I was going to stay quiet. Wait, because something was very wrong, and I needed to know what. When Tom came downstairs at 7, he looked surprised to see me still there, still in yesterday's clothes, calmly drinking coffee. "I thought I told you. I know what you said." I looked him straight in the eye. "But this is my house too. We can talk to a lawyer if you want. Until then, I'm staying." His jaw tightened. For a moment, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Fear, panic. But then it was gone, replaced by that same cold mask. "Fine," he said, "but don't say I didn't warn you." He left for work without another word. And I sat there, waiting for whatever came next. I didn't have to wait long. The doorbell rang at exactly 10:47 a.m. I know because I'd been watching the clock since Tom left. Each minute feeling like an hour. Through the peephole, I saw a man I'd never seen before. He was in his 50s, wearing an expensive-looking grey suit. His hair was perfectly combed, and he carried a leather briefcase that probably cost more than my car. Everything in me screamed not to open that door. But I needed answers. Claire Morrison, he asked when I opened it, keeping the chain lock on. Who's asking? My name is Martin Reeves. I'm an attorney. May I come in? I have some information that concerns you and your husband. That name, Martin. This had to be him. I let him in. What choice did I have? He sat on my couch like he owned the place, setting his briefcase on the coffee table with a soft thud. Double quotes Mrs. Morrison. I'm going to be direct with you because you deserve the truth. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. Your husband came to me for months ago. He wanted to divorce you. I already knew something was wrong, but hearing it out loud still felt like a punch to the gut. But there's a complication, he continued. Your grandfather's will, my grandfather, Papa Joe. He'd died 2 years ago and left me everything. His house upstate, his savings, some stocks. It was a substantial inheritance, about $1.2 million when everything was added up. I'd put it all in a joint account with Tom, like married couples do. We were supposed to use it to retire early, maybe travel, according to your grandfather's will, Martin said. If you divorce within 5 years of receiving the inheritance, it reverts to the family trust. Your husband gets nothing. The room started spinning. So Tom wants me to, what, leave? Give up my claim? Not exactly. Martin pulled out more papers. He hired me to construct a scenario where you would voluntarily leave the marriage and the assets. He's been making payments to me to help facilitate your departure. Facilitate, the word tasted bitter. You mean manipulate. I prefer to think of it as persuasion. His face remained neutral, like he was discussing the weather. The plan was simple. Make you uncomfortable enough to leave, but without any obvious abuse that could be documented. Emotional distance, coldness, making you feel unwelcome in your own home. Eventually, most people break. My hands were shaking. I clasped them together to make it stop. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm a bastard, Mrs. Morrison, but I'm not a monster. He leaned forward. Yesterday, your husband called me. He wants to accelerate the timeline. He's asked me to help him with something called Phase 2. I asked what that meant. He paused, and for the first time, I saw something human in his eyes. Concern, maybe even fear. He wants to have you committed to a psychiatric facility. He's been documenting erratic behavior that doesn't exist. He's been collecting evidence, videos he's edited, statements from friends he's manipulated. Once you're declared mentally unfit, he becomes the sole controller of your assets. The room tilted. I gripped the arm of my chair. That's insane. No one would believe. They would. Actually, Martin pulled out a USB drive. He's very thorough. He's been planning this for months. He has footage of you talking to yourself, which we all do. But edited right, it looks concerning. He has emails he's forged suggesting paranoid thinking. He even has a doctor prepared to testify. I felt like I was drowning. The man I'd loved for 15 years was trying to steal my life. And he'd almost succeeded. Why? I whispered. Why are you helping me? Martin closed his briefcase. Because 30 years ago, someone did something similar to my sister. She ended up in a facility for 2 years. By the time we got her out, everything was gone. She never recovered. She killed herself 5 years later. He stood up. I've done a lot of questionable things in my career, Mrs. Morrison, but I draw the line at this. That USB drive contains copies of everything, the real plan, the forged documents. Recordings of my conversations with Tom. It's enough to bury him legally. He walked to the door, then turned back. He'll be home in 3 hours. I'd suggest you call a lawyer, a real one, and maybe the police. What he's planning isn't just unethical, it's illegal. After he left, I sat there holding the USB drive. My whole body was numb. The man I'd shared my bed with, my dreams with, my life with, had been planning to destroy me. But now I had something he didn't expect. I had the truth. I didn't call the police. Not yet. Instead, I called my best friend, Sarah. She was a paralegal, and the only person I trusted completely. Claire, what's wrong? You sound terrible, she said when she answered. I need you to come over, now, and bring your laptop. I'll explain everything when you get here. She arrived 20 minutes later, her face full of concern. I made us both coffee, because apparently that's what I do in crisis situations, and then I told her everything. The cold dismissal from Tom, the cryptic messages. Martin Reeves showing up at my door. The whole twisted plan. Her face went from concerned to horrified to absolutely furious in the span of 10 minutes. That son of a, she caught herself. Okay, let me see the USB drive. We plugged it into her laptop. What we found was even worse than I'd imagined. There were dozens of files, video clips of me doing completely normal things, cooking, gardening, talking on the phone, but the audio had been manipulated. In one clip, I appeared to be having a conversation with someone who wasn't there. In reality, I'd been on a Bluetooth call with Sarah, but Tom had edited her voice out. There were fake emails supposedly from me to addresses I'd never contacted. Talking about seeing things that weren't real, feeling paranoid, thinking people were following me. The metadata showed they were created from my email account, but sent at times when I was asleep. Tom must have had my password. There was a medical report from a doctor, Harrison Chen, claiming I'd missed several psychiatric appointments and refused medication. I'd never heard of Dr. Harrison Chen in my life, but the worst part, the statements from our friends and neighbors. Our neighbor, Patricia, supposedly told Tom I'd been acting strangely, leaving the house at odd hours, talking to myself in the yard. None of it was true, but there was her signature on an official-looking document. Our friend Mike from Tom's work apparently witnessed me having a breakdown at a restaurant last month, except I hadn't been to a restaurant with Tom in 3 months. Even Tom's mother had signed a statement saying she was concerned about my mental health after I'd called her in the middle of the night crying. I hadn't called her in 6 months. This is a Sarah couldn't finish the sentence. Claire, this is a conspiracy. He's got multiple people lying for him, or he forged their signatures too. I said. My voice sounded strange, distant, like I was listening to someone else talk. Sarah started taking screenshots of everything, organizing files. Her paralegal training kicked in. We need to do this right. Document everything. Timeline, evidence chain. We need a lawyer who specializes in fraud and elder abuse, because that inheritance makes this elder abuse adjacent. I'm 38. Sarah, the inheritance came from an elder. Trust me, it matters legally. She kept typing, and we need to be smart about this. If Tom figures out he might accelerate everything or destroy evidence. A thought hit me. Sarah, if he's been planning this for months, and Martin was helping him. What if Martin coming here was part of the plan? What if this USB drive is fake? What if it's all designed to make me look paranoid? Sarah stopped typing. We stared at each other. We need to verify everything independently, she said finally. Talk to these people directly. Patricia, Mike, Dr. Chen, see if they actually said these things or if Tom fabricated it all. We spent the next 2 hours making a plan. Sarah would take the USB drive and make multiple backup copies, cloud storage, physical drives. Everything. She'd also start reaching out to attorneys. Meanwhile, I would act completely normal when Tom got home, pretend I didn't know anything. Can you do that? Sarah asked. Can you sit across from him at dinner and pretend everything's fine? I thought about Papa Joe. He'd survived World War II, built a business from nothing, raised 4 kids after my grandmother died young. He was the strongest person I'd ever known. His blood ran in my veins. I can do it, I said. After Sarah left, I cleaned the house, did laundry, started prep for dinner. I was moving on autopilot. but it helped to keep busy, kept the panic at bay. At 5:30, I heard Tom's car in the driveway. My heart started racing. This was it, the performance of my life. He came in through the garage, loosening his tie like he did every day. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice casual. "How was work?" He looked at me, suspicious. "Fine, I'm surprised you're still here. Where else would I be?" I forced a smile. "This is my home too, Tom. I know last night was weird, but maybe we should talk about it like adults. Maybe see a counselor." I watched his face carefully. Was that relief I saw? Did he think his plan was working? Maybe, he said slowly. "Yeah, a counselor might be good. A counselor he'd probably already paid off." I thought. Another person to document my supposed instability. We ate dinner in near silence. I asked about his day. He gave one-word answers. It was almost funny. This elaborate plan to gaslight me, and he couldn't even be bothered to put in effort at the dinner table. After dinner, he went to his study. I heard him on the phone, voice low. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was urgent. I went upstairs and took a shower, letting the hot water wash over me. In the mirror, I barely recognized myself. My eyes looked different, harder, older. Tomorrow, I thought. Tomorrow we start fighting back, but I had no idea that tomorrow would bring a revelation that would shatter everything I thought I knew about my marriage, my life, and myself. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Tom's face, the cold stranger he'd become. Around 2 a.m., I gave up and went downstairs for water. That's when I heard it, Tom's voice coming from his study. The door was closed, but not completely. I crept closer. I know. She's still here, but Martin promised it'll work. Yes, I understand the timeline. No, she doesn't suspect anything about Dad. My father had died when I was 10. What did he have to do with any of this? The policy pays out either way. If she's committed, I control it. If she... Look, I don't want to talk about the other option on the phone. My blood turned to ice. The other option. He was talking about me like I was a problem to be solved, not a person, not his wife. I backed away carefully and went back upstairs, but I didn't go to the guest room where I'd been sleeping. Instead, I went to our bedroom, Tom's bedroom now, really, and I started searching. I'd never snooped before. Never felt the need to. Trust was everything to me. How naive that seemed now. I found it in the back of his closet, under a stack of old sweaters, a fireproof lockbox, the kind people use for important documents. I knew where he kept the key, in his nightstand, in an old watch box. My hands were shaking as I opened it. Inside were documents, so many documents. But these weren't about me. They were about my father, life insurance policies, multiple ones, taken out over 20 years ago, with my mother as beneficiary, except she'd never received any payout. My father's death had been ruled as suicide, and the insurance companies had denied the claims. But there was more: investigation reports, private detective files, and a letter, yellowed with age, in handwriting I didn't recognize. Tom, it read, "I've done what you asked." The break line was clean. No one will ever know, but this is the last time. I'm done. What you're doing to that family is wrong. Jay, the date on the letter was 3 weeks before my father's car accident. I couldn't breathe. The room spun. Tom had known my father, but we didn't meet until I was 23. At a coffee shop near campus. He was there for a business meeting. I was studying for exams. It was chance, random, fate, except it wasn't. I kept digging through the box. There were photos, old ones. Tom looked younger. Maybe early 20s, and he was standing next to someone who looked familiar, very familiar. It was my father. They were at what looked like a construction site. Both wearing hard hats, both smiling. Tom had known my father. They'd worked together. And my father had died in a car accident that this letter suggested wasn't an accident at all. I found another document, a partnership agreement between Thomas Morrison and Joseph Brennan. My grandfather, Papa Joe, dated 30 years ago, but it had been dissolved 28 years ago, with a note that said dissolved due to disagreement over business practices and family matters. Tom hadn't just known my father, he'd known my whole family. He'd been Papa Joe's business partner. More pieces clicked into place. Tom would have known about the family trust, known about the inheritance stipulations, known that Papa Joe had cut him out of everything. This wasn't about a marriage gone wrong. This wasn't even about the money. Not really. This was revenge, 28 years in the making. I heard footsteps on the stairs. Quickly, I shoved everything back into the lockbox, locked it, returned it to the closet, and dove into the guest room bed. Just as Tom reached the top of the stairs, I lay there in the dark, my mind racing. Tom hadn't fallen in love with me at that coffee shop. He'd found me, targeted me. Our entire relationship was a lie. He'd gotten close to me to get to Papa Joe's money. But more than that, he wanted to destroy Papa Joe's legacy, destroy me, the last of the Brennan line, and my father, God, my father. The accident that had devastated our family, that had sent my mother into a depression she never recovered from, that had shaped my entire childhood. Tom had caused it. Tears streamed down my face, but I didn't make a sound. I couldn't let him know I knew. Not yet. In the morning, I acted normal, made coffee, made small talk. Tom watched me carefully, like he was waiting for me to crack. I've been thinking, he said over breakfast, about what you said. Maybe we should see that counselor. I actually know someone, Dr. Chen. He's supposed to be excellent. Dr. Chen, the same doctor from the fake medical reports. That sounds great, I said, forcing enthusiasm into my voice. When can we get an appointment? I'll call today. Might even be able to get us in this week. I nodded, playing the hopeful wife. Inside, I was planning. After Tom left for work, I called Sarah. I need you to come over. Now, I found something. Everything is so much worse than we thought. While I waited for her, I photographed every document in that lockbox with my phone. Then I called Martin Reeves. Mr. Reeves, it's Claire Morrison. I need to know something. When did Tom first approach you about divorcing me? For months ago, like I said. Did he ever mention my grandfather or my father? There was a long pause. He mentioned that your grandfather had been difficult, that there was bad blood between them from years ago. I didn't think much of it. Why? Because my husband has been planning this for a lot longer than for months. Try 28 years. Another pause. Mrs. Morrison, I think you need to contact the police. Today, what you're describing sounds like a murder. I finished. My husband murdered my father, and now he's trying to destroy me to get revenge on my dead grandfather. Sarah arrived 10 minutes later. When I showed her everything, she turned pale. Claire, we're not just talking fraud anymore. We're talking about conspiracy to commit murder, past and possibly future. I know. No, I don't think you do. She grabbed my shoulders. That phone call you heard last night. The other option. Claire, I think he's planning to kill you. The words hung in the air. I'd been thinking it but hadn't wanted to say it out loud. We need to go to the police right now. Sarah said, get a protective order, get you somewhere safe, and if we're wrong about any of this, if there's an explanation we're missing. Tom has lawyers, money, connections. He's been planning this for decades. Sarah, he's thought of everything. So what do you want to do? I looked at the photos on my phone. My father's smiling face next to the man who'd killed him. The man I'd married. The man who'd shared my bed for 15 years. I want to make him confess. I said, I want him to admit everything. And I know exactly how to do it. The plan was dangerous. Sarah hated it. Martin Reeves, when I called him, hated it even more. but it was the only way to get Tom to reveal everything. I would wear a wire, a real one, provided by a private investigator Sarah's law firm used, and I would make Tom think he'd won. The appointment with Dr. Chen was scheduled for Friday afternoon. Tom had been almost cheerful all week, thinking everything was falling into place. He'd been kind to me again, attentive even, playing the concerned husband. It made my skin crawl. Thursday night, I made Tom's favorite dinner again, meatloaf. I set the table with our good china, lit candles. I even put on the dress he'd bought me for our 10th anniversary. What's all this? He asked when he came home. I've been thinking a lot, I said softly, about us, about everything. I know I've been difficult lately. The truth is, I haven't been feeling like myself. I watched his eyes light up. This was what he wanted to hear. I'm glad you're recognizing that, he said. Sitting down, that's the first step. Claire, acknowledging that something's wrong. The appointment tomorrow, I continued. I'm actually looking forward to it. I think Dr. Chen can help us. Tom reached across the table and took my hand. His touch made me want to vomit, but I smiled. I'm proud of you, he said. This takes courage. Courage, the word coming from him was almost funny. We ate dinner, made small talk. It was like being in a play, both of us reciting lines. Except he thought I didn't know it was a performance. After dinner, I poured us both wine, Tom's favorite Cabernet. I'd been saving this bottle for a special occasion. This qualified in the worst possible way. Tom, I said, sitting close to him on the couch. The wire was hidden under my cardigan, a tiny device that Sarah had helped me position earlier. Can I ask you something? Of course, how did you really meet my grandfather? Before us, I mean. His hand tightened on his wine glass. Just slightly, but I noticed. What do you mean? I found some old photos in the attic, I lied. You and Papa Joe. From before we met. You never told me you knew him. Tom was quiet for a long moment. I could see him calculating, trying to figure out what I knew and what I was guessing. It's not a secret, he said finally. Joe and I did some business together years ago, before you and I met. It didn't end well. That's why I never mentioned it. I didn't want it to affect our relationship. What kind of business? Real estate development. Your grandfather made some decisions I didn't agree with. We parted ways. It was all very amicable. Lies, all lies, but I needed him to keep talking. Did you know my father too? His whole body tensed. Claire, why are you asking me this now? Because I need to understand something. I turned to face him fully. Did you meet me by accident that day at the coffee shop, or did you know who I was? The mask slipped. Just for a second, I saw anger flash across his face before he controlled it. What are you implying? I'm not implying anything. I'm asking. I kept my voice gentle. Confused, like I was just trying to understand. Because I found more than photos. Tom, I found documents, letters, a lockbox in your closet with a lot of very interesting things in it. He stood up abruptly. The wine glass fell from his hand. Red liquid spreading across our cream carpet like blood. You went through my things. We're married. There are things. And I found a letter, Tom, from someone named Jay about break lines and how no one would ever know. I stood too, facing him. My father died in a car accident, a brake failure. 3 weeks after that letter was written, Tom's face went white, then red. I'd never seen him look like this. All the coldness was gone, replaced by pure rage. You stupid, nosy. He caught himself, took a breath. You don't understand what you're reading. That letter is about something else entirely. Then explain it to me. Your father was a drunk and a fool. Tom spat. He got what he deserved. They all did. Your grandfather, your father. All of them. What did they do to you? What did they do? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. I brought Joe the biggest development deal of his career. $20 million. We would have made a fortune. But he backed out at the last minute, said the investors were questionable, said he didn't want to get involved with those kinds of people. Do you know what that cost me? Money, my reputation. Those people don't forget when you fail to deliver. They came after me. I lost everything, my business, my house, nearly my life. He was pacing now, agitated. Your father knew. He could have convinced Joe to go through with it, but he agreed with the old man, said I was into deep with dangerous people. So I made sure he couldn't interfere anymore. There it was, confession, on tape. You killed my father. I removed an obstacle. He corrected, just like I'm going to remove you. Joe left everything to you out of spite, knowing I could never touch it as long as you were alive and competent. But once you're committed, or better yet, once you have a tragic accident like your father, that money reverts to the trust, and I've already made arrangements with the trustees. 28 years of patient planning, Claire. 28 years of waiting for that bastard to die so I could finally get what's mine, by marrying me. You married me just to steal my inheritance. No, Tom said, and for a moment something that might have been genuine emotion crossed his face. At first, yes, when I found you at that coffee shop. And yes, I knew exactly who you were. It was just about the money. But then you were so naive, so trusting. It was almost too easy. And somewhere along the way, I realized something better than just taking your money. He stepped closer. I forced myself not to back away. Revenge, he continued, destroying Joe's legacy completely. His precious granddaughter, the last Brennan, lost to madness and tragedy. That's worth more than any amount of money. That's justice. That's evil. That's survival. He grabbed my arm, hard, and you just made a fatal mistake, Claire, because now I know that you know, which means the timeline has to accelerate. We're not waiting for Dr. Chen anymore. He dragged me toward the garage. I fought, screaming, but he was stronger. My phone fell from my pocket. The wire pulled loose from under my cardigan, the tiny microphone visible now. Tom saw it. Understanding dawned on his face. You're recording this. The front door burst open. Police officers flooded in, guns drawn. Police, let her go. Hands up. Tom released me and I stumbled back. Sarah was there, with the officers, her phone in her hand. She'd been listening the whole time, waiting outside with the police in case anything went wrong. As they handcuffed Tom, he looked at me with such hatred I felt it like a physical force. You think you've won, he said as they pulled him toward the door. You'll spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder. The people I owe money to, they won't stop just because I'm in prison. You've signed your own death warrant. Then he was gone, shoved into a police car, and I collapsed onto the floor, shaking. 6 months later, I sat in a courtroom watching my husband, my ex-husband, get sentenced to life in prison without parole. 2 counts of first-degree murder. They'd found enough evidence to charge him for my father's death and for a business partner who'd died under suspicious circumstances years ago. Conspiracy to commit murder for planning mine, fraud, and a dozen other charges. Martin Reeves testified against him, so did Dr. Chen, who turned out to be a real doctor Tom had blackmailed into participating. So did half a dozen other people Tom had manipulated or threatened over the years. The threats Tom made about people coming after me turned out to be real. The FBI got involved when they realized the investors Tom had mentioned were connected to organized crime. I spent 3 weeks in protective custody while they rounded up everyone involved. Turned out Tom had been paying off his old debts using money he'd slowly embezzled from my accounts over the years. That's why he needed the full inheritance. He owed nearly $500,000 to very dangerous people, but those people got arrested too, and I testified against them because I learned something important through all of this. I was stronger than I ever knew. I sold the house on Maple Street. Too many bad memories. Instead, I bought Papa Joe's old place upstate, the one he'd left me. I'd never lived there, always meaning to fix it up someday. Someday became now. Sarah helped me move in. We spent weeks cleaning and renovating, turning it from a dusty old house into a real home. My home, you know what's weird? Sarah said one day as we painted the kitchen, in some twisted way, Tom was right about one thing. What's that? He did teach you something. Not what he intended, but you learned you can survive anything, that you're tougher than you look. She was right. The scared woman who sat frozen on her couch that Tuesday night was gone. I'd found something in myself I didn't know existed. Steel, strength, courage. I also learned to trust my instincts. That night when Tom turned off the TV and told me to leave, I knew something was deeply wrong. My gut knew, and instead of doubting myself, I'd listened. Papa Joe's inheritance ended up being even larger than I thought. There were assets Tom never knew about, things Papa Joe had kept private. Enough money that I'd never have to worry about. Finances again, I donated half of it to organizations that help women escape abusive relationships and to support families of murder victims. The rest I invested carefully, following advice from financial advisors that Sarah helped me vet thoroughly. I started volunteering at a women's shelter, using my story to help others recognize the warning signs of manipulation and control. Turned out I was good at it, understanding, empathetic, but also practical and honest about the reality of leaving dangerous relationships. Some nights I still couldn't sleep. I'd think about all the years with Tom, trying to figure out what was real and what was performance. Had he ever loved me at all? Or was every smile, every kiss, every whispered I love you just part of the con? My therapist, a real one this time, said it didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that I was free, safe, building a new life on my own terms, and I was, slowly but surely. I planted a garden in Papa Joe's backyard that first spring. Tomatoes, herbs, flowers, things that needed care and patience, but would grow beautiful and strong if tended properly. One morning, -1 month after moving in, I was having coffee on the porch when a car pulled up. My heart started racing. Old habits die hard, but it was just the mailman. Package for you, Ms. Brennan, he said cheerfully. I'd gone back to my maiden name. The package was from Martin Reeves. Inside was a letter and a check for $50,000. Dear Claire, the letter read, "This is my fee that Tom paid me to help destroy you. I'm returning it to you in full, plus interest. I've also closed my practice. I'm going back to school to become a counselor instead. My sister would have liked that. Use this money however you want. You've earned it. Martin Reeves." I stood there holding the check, tears running down my face. But they weren't sad tears. They were something else. Relief, maybe, or hope. I endorsed the check and donated the whole amount to